All right, so let's talk about the Texas Legislature. Now, the Texas Legislature has 181 members. There are 31 Texas senators. There are 150 members of the House. To be a member of the House, you have to be at least 21. You have to have lived in Texas for 2 years, and you have to be a resident of the district that you wish to represent it for at least a year. To be in the Texas Senate, you have to be at least 26 years old, live in Texas for 5 years, and be a resident of your district for at least 1 year. Now, obviously, that most senators and representatives are older than 21 and 26. So usually people don't like people that young. They're seen as inexperienced. Now, when we look at running for office, it takes a lot of money to run for these seats. It can run into the millions of dollars, which is amazing for a job that pays roughly $7,200 a year, $600 a month, $150 a week. But you do get a per diem of $190 a day when you're in session. But that's used to pay for your lodging and your food that you need when you're down in Austin when you don't live in Austin. So it's not a well-paying job, and it's considered a part-time legislature. It only meets every 2 years for 140 days, unless the governor calls special sessions, which the governor can do. The governor can call as many special sessions as he or she pleases that last for a maximum of 30 days, and the governor gets to set the agenda. So when you look at the legislature, it's often said, is it a representative body? Does it look like Texas? It doesn't really. It's still predominantly white males. The two primary occupations are business and lawyers. And those people can serve as consultants. They can serve as retainers for companies that have business before the legislature. So it's hard for people like you or me to say, I want to become a Texas legislator, because we couldn't afford to do so because of the pay. Now, let's talk about the Texas House. The Texas House has 150 members. It's presided over by the Speaker of the House. The Speaker is elected by the members. You got to have at least 76 votes to become Speaker. So obviously, that's a majority. It's known as being part of the Speaker's team. You want to make sure you're on the Speaker's team, because that means you get your committee assignments that you want. The Speaker gets to appoint all the committee chairs, and that's important to note. We'll talk a little bit more about committees here in just a moment. The Speaker can vote on bills. The Speaker can debate, introduce bills, has all the same powers as a legislator. Can even debate bills, you name it. But the job of Speaker primarily is to preside over the functioning of the House. The Speaker also serves as an ex officio member of the Legislative Budget Board, which is the board that primarily creates the budget. So if we flip on over to the Texas Senate, the Texas Senate is presided over by the Lieutenant Governor. Now, the Lieutenant Governor, by many people's standards, is considered the most constitutionally most powerful person in the state, more powerful than the governor. The governor's big advantage is that everybody knows who the governor is. They don't necessarily know who the lieutenant governor is. Now, the lieutenant governor, like I said, is elected statewide by everybody. It gets paid $7,200 a year and presides over the Senate. Lieutenant governor gets to appoint all committee members. And therefore, if you want to serve on the committee that you want to serve on, then you better make sure that you're on the lieutenant governor's good side. Lieutenant governor also chairs the Legislative Budget Board. So that means the lieutenant governor has a great deal to say of what the budget's going to be. Lieutenant governor also takes over if the governor dies, resigns, impeached, and removed, or even if the governor is out of the state, the lieutenant governor acts as the governor. Now, the Senate is a little bit different than the House, in that the Senate has the filibuster, which means that you can talk a bill to death as long as you remain standing and continue talking about the bill. Now, the worldwide record for filibustering happened in the Texas Senate. Bill Meyer of Euless, Texas, filibustered for about 44 hours, staying on his feet and talking about a bill. It was a local bill. He was trying to break the record, so nothing unusual about that. But you can filibuster. And in the Texas Senate, you can't end it unless that person just gives up and can't talk anymore. It also has something called the tagging rule, which allows a senator to delay a bill at the committee level for 2 days by tagging it. So that's the Texas Senate and the Texas House. Let's talk about real briefly about the committee system. Each side runs the committee system. Purpose of the committee system is that the legislature deals with 6,000 bills in 140 days. And as a legislator, you can't know all of those bills, obviously. You can't. There's just too many of them. And so what they do is they break themselves down into committees and assign people certain types of bills. You serve on the banking committee, you deal with banking bills. You do on transportation bills. Now, the purpose of the committee system is, one, it spreads out the workload, so you don't have to study every bill. You've got committees that look at it and decide whether it's going to be good or not. It weeds out bad bills because there are a lot of bad bills, and it weeds out about 86 to 90% of all bills die in committee. And they die because in a committee they can be pigeonholed, which means that you put it at the bottom of the list and they're never talked about, or they're amended to death, or they come out of the committee with a negative recommendation. So bills die in committee often. So that allows for the committee system to weed out bad bills, and that's important to do. The committees also help create experts, right? If you serve on a committee on, say, transportation, after a few years, you're an expert on transportation. That means other members of the legislature can look to you for guidance because you become an expert because you've studied it. Committees also come up with the new ideas for policies. So the legislature meets once every 2 years. Its primary job, its number one job, is to pass a budget. Texas budgets every 2 years. And so we don't meet every year, so we have to have a budget for 2 years. And so that's the legislature in a nutshell. I've got a much more detailed legislative video that you should watch, but I just want to give you a quick touch base on the legislature, and we'll do something about the plural executive and the executive branch tomorrow.